So we are still working on the shelves. That's today. And today, I know that we had said that we're going to do the next part of the Motu collection next. But this one is going to be a simpler one because I feel like it will free up a shelf. I feel like it's important. Today is the Gunpla. So back here is Gunpla. All the way back there. You see it? That is the Gunpla shelf. I know there's other stuff on it, but that's because this project wreaks havoc across the entire collection. That's the way that this project is, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Every year, I go across the entirety of the collection, and I determine what stays, what goes, what matters, what still makes sense, and what are the biggest parts of the collection that deserve the biggest expanding spaces. This is important. I honestly feel like it's important, and I feel like it needs to be done every year in order to curate and guarantee that our collections maintain the integrity of what they are. A collection that actually matters. I don't want to pick up 1,000 parts, 1,000 characters, and 1,000 items that mean absolutely nothing to me. That's not where my interest lies. So, my idea is that I want to clear the Gundam shelf. And I think that I can do it by simply moving it right here. Right now, we have the Fantastic Four shelf that we've already done. And I think this is the next step. I kind of feel like this is a weird reasoning, to be fair, but I got these batteries right here, see? And that kind of made me feel like technology. That's where I keep the battery charger for the batteries for the camera. And that, for some reason, that made me feel like, let's put the Gundams with the battery. It's just it's a stupid train of thought, but while I have it and it makes sense to me, we may as well do it. And it gives me a chance to talk about the Gunpla on this channel because it's something that I don't often talk about. So I've cleared that part of the shelf. That's 100% cleared. There's nothing there except for the batteries now, and I've dusted it and everything, so it's fine, it's ready. But I did want to say something. Gunpla is a weird thing on this channel. Gunpla is something that I'm very much interested in. It's something that I'm very much a part of. It's something that I very much love. It's something that stems back many, many, many years with me and has been an interesting side hobby of mine for... wow. Since Gundam Wing first came to Toonami. That's about how long ago I started in Gunpla. I have an entire video on this channel that specifically talks about my history with Gunpla, why it started in the first place, and I have done a couple of videos specifically talking about Gunpla. And I even had this entire idea for a while of something that I wanted to do on the channel where I would talk about builds and I would talk about like how each one came out. But I decided against it. And there was an actual reason why I decided against it. Gunpla is almost like a personal hobby to me. It's something that I do sometimes by myself, sometimes I do it with my brother, and sometimes I do it with my child. That's something that I don't need to record and televise all the time. It's just something that's mine. It's my hobby. It's my thing. And I'm no kind of expert. And I've also noticed that when it comes to things like YouTube, no matter what you collect, it's open to scrutiny all the time, regardless of anything. People sometimes like to demean another person's hobby. It's just the nature of it. I don't know why. People will sometimes demean the thing that you collect to better the thing that they've chosen to collect. I won't even buy those, blah, 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 Mayfex. I won't even touch that, blah, 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 Storm Collectibles. That kind of idea. Or sometimes you'll get those comments that say things like, oh, well, the only line that I collect is this because this line has way too much reuse, while at the same time the line they're specifically talking about, because it's toys, has reuse, and we all know how the toy industry works. They absolutely love reuse. Everything on this shelf has a ridiculous amount of reuse. But Gunpla also has this problem where you'll say something like, I specifically build 144, 1 in 144 scale, and I usually focus on HG. It's the entry grade. It's usually fairly simple to build. They still build very good kits, and I think the color separation is fine for what it's worth. And then they'll come on and they'll go, I only do perfect or master, or you shouldn't be messing with that. Just move up to real grade. HG is just, it's just useless. It doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't even waste my money on it. Or they'll say things like, well, how come you don't paint, or you don't that, or you don't this? Because I usually like to burn a couple of hours and just make it. I'm not that worried about it being an expert level thing. I just like to build it, put it on the shelf, get a better understanding for it, and love it for what it is, and experience that time. That's a time for me to sit down and talk with my brother for a couple of hours while we just talk about something stupid, or we play YouTube videos, or we consider like what we're going to do for the rest of the night while we build a Gunpla. That's like our thing. He'll cut all the things out and go through the directions, and I'll kind of watch over it. I've built a lot more than he has. So oftentimes what happens is he'll want to build something. He'll see a unit that he wants to build. I'm there. He won't normally make any mistakes, because any kind of problem that he comes across, like, I'm pretty sure this is right, I can be like, yes, I've seen that build before. Yes, this is the way it works. Or with my kid now, that's even more so. Like the last thing that we built was the Goof Custom. We built the Goof Custom Crimson version. And I built that with my kid, and she did make one mistake. She turned the arms backwards. She built the interior in reverse, so the elbows didn't function correctly, and I had to kind of open them up, turn them around, fix them, put them back together. But I shaved down the parts. We talked the whole time. We hung out for like 3-4 hours while we did that. I played a movie in the background. It's my thing. And that's the reason I haven't really televised it or like made big videos of it. I did start, but I don't know if that's ever really going to become a thing here that we do, other than at the year cap where maybe I'll mention some things. Or maybe I might start doing small shorts. I don't like to get into shorts. It's not a focus of this channel at all. I more than likely use the shorts as a way to say, hey, I don't want to do an entire video. We've added Buzz Off to the collection or whatever. Just something simple like that. Something that I can use the shorts that make sense, that tie into other videos and are never necessarily their own thing. Because if I'm going to do that kind of creation, it's usually going to be on Instagram, or it's going to be on TikTok, if TikTok even survives. We know everything that's going on with TikTok. We'll wait and we'll see. But because of that, about the only thing that I think Gundam is going to do, Gunpla-wise, is maybe I'll start mentioning, hey, I built this, and add it to the shelf. But I don't even know if we're going to go that far. So, yes, this will be one of the rare looks into the Gunpla that was like put together this year, and it will go onto that shelf. And I think that easily it will fit that shelf. And maybe I might even mention some things that I want. And I know there's a couple items that are not going to be staying on the shelf. But that is the reason you don't see Gunpla on this channel like you do everything else. Because everything else in this room we talk about extensively on the channel. But not Gunpla. That's the reason why. And I think it very well might stay that way. I have had the possibility in mind to do live builds, where I just kind of turn the webcam on and I hang out and I talk and I build a Gunpla. I've thought about that, but I don't even know if that's for me. We'll see. This channel is ever growing, and it has done a lot of progress in the last 2 years, a ridiculous amount of progress, and it's really kind of set in stone what I want this channel, what I want it to be, and how I like to do the channel in general. And I think that really says something about these last 2 years, because I've never really focused in on YouTube until very recently. And so you'll notice that when I did, I really picked an absolute focus, and this time it has not deviated like other focuses that I've chosen, because this time all those other focuses that I've chosen throughout the years have a place in the one major thing that I've done for basically almost my whole life: toys. Let's get those Gunpla onto that shelf. Alright, so starting this out, and I guess the camera's a little more crooked than I had assumed, but I don't think it's going to affect anything. That there is my favorite Gundam model ever. I know it's not a Gundam, I know it's a mobile suit, but that is. The Goof Custom is easily by far my favorite design in the history of all Gundam stuff that has ever been Gundam stuff. I absolutely love that for what it's worth. And very recently, as I just got done talking about, this model right here is now accompanied by this model right here, as my daughter and me actually put together the Crimson Red not way too long ago at all, and it was an absolute fantastic day. Like, it was really cool. My daughter came down and said, "Hey, I kind of want to make one of those Gunplas," and I was like, "Yeah? What do you want?" And she went upstairs and she looked around for a while and she came back down and she was like, "I like this guy." And I was like, "That is fantastic news, because that's my favorite design ever. Let's build that." Next, here's a Zaku 2. That's a high mobility if I'm not... Nah, it might not be. I can't remember what this is. I wanted a Zaku 2 on the shelf, and I found this one, and I don't think it's the high mobility build or anything like that. At least I'm pretty sure it's not. But regardless, that's a really good Zaku 2, and it's not leaving the collection anytime soon. I absolutely loved building it, and I would like just a standard Zaku 2 at some point to be able to put up here, but I don't have one yet. I'm not exactly worried. I'm sure that there will be plenty of Zaku 2s on the market for me to get. Here's probably one of my oldest ones still sitting in the collection to this day. That is the Char Zaku 2, and it is a very old model. You can even tell by the old hands that it uses and things like this. This is probably one of the oldest pieces still existing in my entire collection, because I've lost this collection a couple of times over the years. Here's a Leo, and the Leo was the very first Gunpla ever that my kid came up and said, "Hey, I've built a lot of those Pokemon now. You think maybe I could build a Gunpla?" And I was like, "Well, of course you could build a Gunpla. There's no reason. It's not like I'm keeping them secret from you or anything like that." She's like, "Oh, I just thought they were really complicated." "No, I don't really think so. I think you'd be fine. What one do you want to build?" She goes looking through and she finds this and she says, "That looks like it could be easy." So the very first one that my kid ever made with me was the Leo. And there's only one problem with the Leo. It actually does have one minor problem. It is so minor. See this little green right here? This? She dropped that when she was putting it together. It fell on the floor and it disappeared forever, and we don't know what happened to it, and I was never able to find it. It does not bother me at all that it's missing. Whatever. That being said, my favorite unit ever, the Goof, right there, that it is. I know I just said the Goof Custom's my favorite design, but my favorite unit by far has always been the Goof, so of course the Goof Custom came in as being an absolute masterpiece of design for me as well, and that's fantastic. Well, to add to the Char stuff, I do have Char's Zagok, which is not one of my favorite suits ever, but I didn't mind actually building it. I was curious as to how this part was going to be, the way the arms and whatnot were going to work, and that was one of the biggest reasons I wanted to make it in the first place, and I did. And to follow that up, here's one that's leaving the collection, and that's this. This is from the Gundam Origins, the Char Custom, and it is rough. It is in very rough condition. It's missing parts. Part of its hand is gone. This is just a very rough piece. It is going to be leaving the collection. I will be replacing it with a new build because it has seen a lot better days. This was used for a dice rolling miniature game for a long time, and it has seen a lot of use and a lot of manipulation, and because of that, it's in a very specific kind of condition. I like grunt units. That's a thing that I like quite a bit. I like these like smaller-esque regular units. I'm a big fan of them for what it's worth. And case in point, I often like to pick up multiple designs of these kinds of simple mobile suits, gyms, and things like that. I'm a huge fan of the simple models. Not everything has to be a 00, bad mug, ridiculous, unbelievable build. It just doesn't have to be that way with me. That being said, probably the most complicated HG that I've put together is the Moon Gundam. Let me clear that up. The Moon Gundam is sick. That is such a cool design in every single possible way. For the funnels on the back, the moon funnels thing that he has, the gun is really solid. That sword is really cool and very, very unique. He was an HG that came with a stand, which is not a normal thing by any means whatsoever. And he had a lot of intricate little things that you had to do in order to build him, including the way that his armor works, where unlike other things from the HG, like this guy actually had plates and interiors that covered up and moved, so the armor actually moves, and like that is not normal for an HG. That's usually something you would see in a real grade. But the cool thing about HG is, as Gundams get better and better and better and better and better, I've seen where a lot of real grade techniques, and sometimes even some master grade techniques, kind of roll down into the HG. So I don't think you can go wrong with any one of the builds that you choose, and that's the reason it's never bothered me to build in the HG format. That is not a Gundam. It is not the Gundam. From what I understand, that is a very sophisticated gym. It's from the Build series, which I have not watched, but when I came across this on a store shelf, I was like, that is really cool. Like, that's basically a Gundam gym. Like, I'm really into that. It's just really cool and really interesting, so I had to pick it up. My brother's favorite show was G Gundam, in terms of the Gundam stuff. And that was his favorite unit, so we bought that and we built it together. And it is a really solid build for what it is. I don't necessarily care for that show, but he does, so we built it. Then there's this crazy thing right here, which, I'm going to be honest, I don't even 100% know what that is. It was just cool. It was something that I found. It very much was like a very advanced Wing Zero kind of idea, and I liked it very much. This is the only thing that I hold against HG, though, is the sticker stuff. Like, this is actually really good because these are not stickers. But sometimes they will give you a complicated sticker to put here, and it'll come off. I've had to fix that a couple of times because the stickers on Gunpla are not great, but this is kind of what I was talking about with HG, is sometimes you see really sophisticated build techniques kind of passed down into these lower models. Like, every one of these see-through like accent pieces, that's really cool. Like, the gun has a see-through actual part right here and everything, and then the knees, and then this normally would have just been a sticker, but it's not. There's actually two parts here, and the head was kind of hard to build because it's actually super intricate. This is a really, really cool model. I mean, he came out fantastic. And of course, for what it's worth, here's an older model, but a good one, the original, the OG, the Gundam, the RX-78-2. Now, I have the Origins model, and I've yet to build it. So I'm hoping that once I build the Origins model, it'll just be so absolutely sick that this one basically won't even be relevant anymore. And who knows, maybe that's exactly what will happen. And that's pretty much it, except for a couple little add-ons. One, a toy, a ball. He's a toy, but he's Ball, and I don't have any other way to have him right now. Alongside Ball, I actually like to keep these little things right here. This is just a little Fetty right here, just a little Fetty girl. I don't know where she came from. I don't even know what she necessarily is. I think I even opened her on the channel and talked about her. I just thought she was neat, and she was super cheap, and I wanted to add her, and if I could get like a little Xeon to go over here or whatever, that would also be really cool too. Now there are 3 items that I am removing from the collection, and we do have to talk about the space. Right now, this fits. This fits, but I am not oblivious to the fact that it will not fit for that much longer. I've probably got 3 spots here, and then this shelf will be way too occupied. I'm not going to run out of this shelf anytime soon, and when it happens, I have another shelf that's bigger that I can transfer this to, but for this year, these are probably fine, and I will probably have to make another movement soon. That's the one thing about this, though. That's the one thing about this hobby I often see ignored, in all honesty, is people like to talk about the collection all the time. I got. Well, you got a bunch of stuff. Where does it go? It has to have a spot. That can get complicated. It can get very complicated. Now, you saw what just happened. Sometimes we kind of eye a part of the collection and go, I know what I can do with that. And then we'll move it, and then it seems like it's fine. And then you immediately realize this is a collection that is kind of in growth. Chances are this is not going to work. And chances are, as I just said, what we just did right there probably will not stay there for very long. At the end of the year project, though, to be able to figure out what stays and what goes, this is fine for me right now. But I am not oblivious to the fact that that's going to have to be moved to the cubby hole on the black shelves, because the black shelves are a little bit longer and they will actually house that Gunpla easier. Gunpla is something that doesn't get added to quickly. It's a very slow process. I buy one. Sometimes it sits in the box for half a year. Then finally I will make it. Sometimes the Gunpla I buy, I don't even make for myself. I end up building it, and then I give it to like my buddy Shane or something like that, because maybe that's the unit that he liked or something, and I was just more interested in building and hanging out than I was necessarily owning said unit. So that does happen. There's also the possibility that once I move the Origin Motu off of the shelves over there, and my idea right now, the reason that I cleared that up, is to put the Origin Motu there. That would then open up one of the double wide shelves that are like this for all the Gunpla. So maybe the Gunpla will end up over there. It's hard to say. It would be ideal and really cool to keep the Gunpla over here by the big wall hang of Amuro. Will it happen that way? I don't know. And I just don't know. This is the nature of managing your space and guaranteeing, figuring out what goes where, why it goes there, and yada yada. That's another reason I like to do this at the end of the year, is I really like to try to manage what came in, where it goes, what kind of problems it's creating, or what kind of benefits I happen to be getting from it, and if something needs to leave the collection. And 3 items are gone from Gunpla this year. So the items that are gone from Gunpla this year are 3 toys from the current Gundam action figure collections that people have been seeing in Walmarts and whatnot. That is the EZ81, the EZ8. I really like this. This is one of my favorite units ever, and it is from one of my all-time favorite shows ever. That is the reason I bought this, was specifically for that. But there's a problem with these figures. They are not 1/44th scale. Even if they claim to be, they are not. I know this because the Gundam Wing stuff is way too big. This is Wing. It's cool. It's very cool. These action figures are cool. And the 3rd item that we're getting rid of, Death Scythe. Why get rid of these? Well, because their scale and their design is too different. As action figures, they have a very different paint feel. They, of course, feel different in the hands. They are bigger, and in some cases, they're a little less detailed. That's actually true, because when you're putting all the plates and everything on yourself, you tend to notice certain details that didn't come out in the other things, and you can actually see that. We've talked about stickers being a problem. That's not going to go away. That's still going to be a problem for the HG models. But I have Wing and I have Death Scythe currently sitting in wait to be built right now. And I will do just that. I will build these. And then I will add them to the shelf, and I will actually appreciate them more than just having an action figure. And I actually do think they will look a little better, and then they will scale to the other figures so that if I ever want to do photography or anything with them, they'll make sense. Those are the 3 items that are leaving the collection. I bought them on a whim. I thought it would be cool to just have some Gundams that I could just buy and put on the shelf. Because when I started in Gundams, as I said, I have that video on here if you want to see it. When I started in Gundams, I started in toys. And the only reason I got into Gunpla in the first place was because I couldn't get a toy. It really is that simple. I couldn't get what I was hoping for. I ended up with what I ended up with. These 3 items were kind of a kickback to that. Hey, I remember buying these toys. It's cool that these toys are a thing now. Let me get them. I would rather build them. It's a weird thing at this point. I was forced into doing it that way, and now I prefer it that way. And because of that, I also have to very much admit that I know that, like, when I make him, this will be a type of see-through plastic. It won't be this painted thing. I also know that to be true for this. I also know that the eyes will be those little see-through, those see-through greens. Like, there are little itty-bitty details that I know that if I build this guy, I will appreciate him more. And in argument, there are things about him that will look better. So these have outlived their spots in the collection. They're not bad by any means. And anybody that's interested in these kinds of action figures, I'd say give it a try. But for me, the point of the Gunpla is the build experience. To sit down with my brother, to sit down with my kid, to talk and to hang out and to spend that quality time and to build something and to put it on the shelf and have a new level of appreciation for having seen all the details go into the design. I think this is important to me. And I think it's important enough to me that the action figures are actually unimportant to me. So they're leaving the collection. And that has now cleared up that entire shelf, which is good because the collection is kind of wild in some parts. So now next, we are going to work on getting all of the Masters of the Universe good guy faction onto a shelf. It might be possible. It might not be possible. We're going to figure that out in real time. And when we do that, then we may even clear up another shelf. See, space. Space is the nightmare of every collector. And you have to know how much you're accumulating, where it's going to go, how you're going to store it, whether it'll look good, whether it'll look bad. And in my case, in all honesty, because really a lot of this is going to fall back into action figure photography as we do more and more and more of it, because I have a lot of ideas that I'd like to start getting a little more serious about. I'm not too worried about displays. I don't need like an action display. It doesn't have to be moving and shooting and jumping and things like that. So in all honesty, if all these figures literally just stand on the shelf standing, that's boring, but it also guarantees my space and I can take them off of that standing position anytime I need, go do photography with them and put them back. Which we actually talked about in the Motu Evil Doers section. The reason it does not bother me that they all just kind of got packed in is because I will be taking them out as I need them. And so since they're always going to be leaving that position and I always don't want to go through the trouble of trying to put them back into their action pose positions, this is not going to be a problem for me. But everybody collects differently and everybody has a different mindset as to why they do this. I just kind of wanted you to be in on the process this year to really understand why I think about this the way that I do. But that's what stays, and that's what stays, and that's what goes from the Gundam collection. There's more to do. I'll see you later.
I have spoken.